This week may have been the best week of WWE television we have ever seen. We started with the return of Seth freaking Rollins. We ended it with the debut of Jacob Fatu joining the Bloodline. This week from start to finish was nothing short of incredible. Let's get into it. Before we start chatting about this week though, make sure you hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. Make sure you're notified whenever we post a new video. We have video podcasts going up every Monday. We have an audio version on Apple Music, Spotify, anywhere you can get a podcast, we are there. So be sure to check that out. And most importantly, be sure to follow us on TikTok. I'm really trying to shoot for that 1,000 follower mark so we're able to go live with some watch-alongs of Raw and Smackdown and sometimes NXT and definitely PLEs when we're able. I'm really trying to grow this channel as fast as I can, as well as the other channels on TikTok and our podcasts as well. So make sure you're really supporting, make sure you're fully engulfed in the Vacant Wrestling universe. I really appreciate it. Now, kicking off Monday Night Raw, we saw the return of Seth freaking Rollins. Completely shocking to me. I'm pretty sure they never even let this one slip anywhere. I saw no reports, no rumors, nothing. Seth Rollins opened up the show unannounced. The crowd went absolutely ballistic, and he declared that he is gunning for his World Heavyweight Championship that he lost at WrestleMania to Drew McIntyre. Now, initially, he was trying to go for the Money in the Bank briefcase by competing in the Money in the Bank ladder match at the pay-per-view, but he was interrupted by Damian Priest, who came out and said, "Listen, man, I wanted to cash in on you, but instead I had to cash in on Drew because Drew beat you for the title. And I want to prove that I'm the best World Heavyweight Champion, so I want to face you at Money in the Bank." One interesting note as well, he actually admitted that Judgment Day didn't know he was out there. He went out there to challenge Seth completely on his own. Judgment Day was no part of it. We'll see if that adds to the tension that's brewing within the group. Damian Priest actually confronted Finn Balor in the clubhouse and asked him why he slipped the key card that Liv Morgan gave to Dominic into his pocket without anyone seeing last week on Raw. And Finn got really defensive and kind of got a little combative in response. It was definitely really tense, and it might be building to something there. Another thing to note in this segment, Dominic actually mentioned that he couldn't find his purple cow vest. An interesting style choice, but it was basically a purple denim vest with cow print on it. We'll see where that goes. We had a Money in the Bank qualifying match later in the night as Io Sky defeated Kiana James and Zelina Vega in a triple threat match, and actually happened because Liv Morgan came out in Dominic Mysterio's purple cow vest he was missing and distracted Zelina Vega, allowing Io Sky to pick up the win. So it seems like where we're going with this is Liv Morgan defending the Women's World Championship against Zelina Vega at Money in the Bank. Now, after all this happens, Dominic's still looking for the vest. He turns a corner, and Liv is there wearing the vest. She tells him he has to take it off her, so he starts to unzip it. He's definitely very hesitant, like he doesn't want to do it. And of course, this is the time that Damian Priest comes around the corner. So now it looks like Dominic's still messing around with Liv Morgan, even though it seems like he's not. And in the main event of Raw, we had a triple threat Money in the Bank qualifying match as Jey Uso defeated Finn Balor and Rey Mysterio to qualify for Money in the Bank. And that caught a lot of people by surprise. I think a lot of people thought that Finn Balor might win Money in the Bank this year. I personally don't see it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Finn maybe caught a last chance qualifier to get the last spot. Dominic Mysterio, JD McDonough, and Carlito actually interfere to cost Rey Mysterio the match, and Braun Strowman came out to make the save. So we're still in this LWO and Braun Strowman versus the Judgment Day feud as well. Pivoting over to a different story on Raw, the Alpha Academy saga continues, and actually we saw the culmination that we were all waiting for. So after Braun Strowman defeated Chad Gable, Gable started disciplining Tozawa until Maxine stepped in front to stick up for him. Now Gable then took her crutch and threw it out of the ring and told her to leave the ring. They go to leave, and Gable pulls Tozawa back and slaps him in the face. Now Otis then hears what's happening. He turns to Chad Gable and actually pushes him into the corner, and then eventually Otis, Tozawa, and Maxine all make their exit out of the ring and up the ramp. Backstage, they tell Chad Gable they're packing their things and they are leaving the Alpha Academy. It is over. Drew McIntyre is then out to cut a promo about CM Punk and the fallout of the Clash at the Castle World Heavyweight Championship match. Obviously, CM Punk ended up coming out in a referee shirt and distracting Drew McIntyre, screwing him over and costing him the World Heavyweight Championship against Damian Priest. So Drew's out there to kind of say his piece. He starts to talk, he gets a little choked up. The crowd's chanting CM Punk, tormenting this man, and eventually Drew says, "Screw this company, I quit." This kind of seemed like a way to cool off this feud for a minute, put it on the back burner so we can continue this build to Money in the Bank. Obviously, they're not going to be wrestling each other at Money in the Bank, so they may as well wait a bit until afterwards so they can focus all their attention on Money in the Bank and build towards Punk versus Drew at SummerSlam when that's the next pay-per-view up. Now in the Intercontinental Championship picture, Sami Zayn comes out to cut a promo. He says he's ready to move on from Chad Gable and the Alpha Academy when Braun Breaker comes out and calls his shot at the Intercontinental Championship. When it's about to be pretty much set in stone that Braun is getting the shot, Sheamus comes out, says he also wants a shot, and then he ends up challenging Braun Breaker to a one-on-one match later in the evening. Now, Sheamus ended up defeating Braun Breaker by DQ because of Ludwig Kaiser interfering and costing Sheamus the matchup. Now, Ludwig goes to beat down Sheamus, and actually they do a really cool spot where Ludwig is about to run around the entire ring to get momentum and take out Sheamus, but Braun goes the other way, and it basically is like the two of them going out around the ring like this, and Braun spears Ludwig Kaiser with an insane spear. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Braun Breaker continues to impress. Braun Breaker then goes over to Sami Zayn, who's at the commentary desk, shoves him. It gets Sami angry. They start to want to brawl, but then, agents and producers and security come in to break it apart. So it looks like the direction we're going with the Intercontinental Championship for right now is a fatal four-way feud: Sami, Kaiser, Sheamus, and Breaker. And I think from here we'll move out of that and into a singles feud between Sami and Braun, probably for SummerSlam, and I'm looking forward to it. And y'all, we can't talk about Monday Night Raw without talking about the debut of the Wyatt 6. Finally, after all of these QR codes, all of these teases, the dates, the names, plugging other content creators in the wrestling world, after all of this happening, the Wyatt 6 finally show up on Monday Night Raw. So Jey Uso wins that triple threat qualifier for Money in the Bank, and as they're celebrating, the lights start to go down sections at a time, similar to how Bray Wyatt in The Fiend used to be as well. Eventually, the piano starts droning that D-flat, that ding, 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 and eventually Bray's door is on the stage. There's the blue light behind it, the door opens, and the light is shining through the doorway, but then the light goes out. Out comes a woman who is crawling on the floor toward a lantern that is lit up on the floor, and that woman crawling is none other than Sister Abigail, Abby the Witch, played by Nikki Cross. So she crawls up to the lantern, she goes up, and she ends up pointing like this to gesture for the cameraman to go backstage. Now the cameraman starts to go backstage, he turns the corner, and there's a pile of bodies, and the camera pans up, and there is Eric Rowan playing Ramblin' Rabbit. He's in a rabbit mask, he's got a giant hammer that reminds me of the Bludgeon Brothers days, and he's standing over this pile of bodies, and it's starting to look really scary. We continue walking backstage into the gorilla position where the offices are, where people can watch from backstage, and it's a mess. There is electricity, sparks flying, there's blood on the walls, everything is destroyed, and sitting cross-legged on a stage box is Mercy the Buzzard, played by Dexter Lumis. We continue the walk through the backstage area, coming through the curtain after gorilla position, and standing right at the other side of the curtain is Huskus the Pig, played by none other than NXT's Joe Gacy. Now, up to this point, all the bodies that have been seen looked similar to current wrestlers: Carmelo Hayes, Gunther, Braun Strowman, a few other people like that. But we continue to walk through, and we finally see an actual WWE superstar laying unconscious against a stage box and bleeding out of a wound from his head. And that superstar is none other than Chad Gable. Now, at one point in the teases, there was somebody with the initial CG being teased as a target by the Wyatt 6, so this makes perfect sense as to why it's Chad Gable. Now, the camera pans up to a hallway, and at the end of this hallway is a blue light shining toward the camera, and standing in front of this light is none other than Uncle Howdy, played by Bo Dallas, or Taylor Rotunda, Bray Wyatt's brother. Howdy walks the same way that we came in. He starts walking through the backstage area, and as he walks and passes by each other member, they start to turn and file in behind Uncle Howdy as they make their way out to the stage. Now, once they all return out to the stage, they all five of them group up in front of the door, and ends up with Uncle Howdy holding the lantern, saying, "We're here," and blowing it out as Raw goes off the air. And that's it. That's how Raw went off the air. But seriously, from start to finish, quality storytelling, surprises at the start and the end of the show, and one of the best debuts I think I've ever seen as a wrestling fan, period. Bar none. It is far and away incredible. I just hope that they continue this hype, because this is the thing with the Bray Wyatt storylines, that they tend to do well, but as the story progresses, it starts to get a little less entertaining, a little more confusing, and a little corny at times as well. So we'll see if they can keep this momentum going. Now, I do want to take a quick detour to NXT. I didn't watch NXT this week. I'm a bad fan, but I did watch the one thing that I was looking forward to, and everyone else going into NXT. So there was this 25-man battle royal to determine Trick Williams' #1 contender for the NXT championship, and they teased that people from other locker rooms were going to show up. Now, this could have easily been Raw and Smackdown talent, but Frankie Kazarian from TNA was there, And one of the other TNA wrestlers getting an entrance of his own, featured entrance before the match, is none other than Joe Hendry. This was absolutely incredible. The crowd lit up. I think this was probably the biggest pop I had ever seen out of the Capitol Wrestling Center, even more than when Trick won the title. The camera was shaking, but man, it was like way bigger. It felt way bigger than that Trick Williams pop. And Joe Hendry comes out, cuts a promo. It's a really good promo too, but he gets in the ring and he's immediately eliminated right off the bat. Now, this might seem like an insult to Joe Hendry as a character, and it might seem a little insulting to the fans that were looking forward to seeing Joe Hendry, but I think all this does is open the door for more appearances by Joe Hendry, because there was some footage that were, I believe it was an online exclusive. He went backstage and confronted Shawn Michaels about it, and basically Michaels was like, I believe. And he also teased showing up on other WWE programming as well, not just NXT. So we could even see Joe Hendry qualify for the Money in the Bank match. I doubt it, but it's pretty cool to see that the door is still open for Joe Hendry to come back. Now, last night's Smackdown was absolutely friggin' insane. Oh my god. Now, CM Punk opens up Smackdown because obviously Smackdown is at Chicago. That's CM Punk's home turf. He actually got clearance to skip Raw to go through medical evaluation for his triceps injury and show up on Smackdown as a special appearance since it takes place in Chicago. And actually, he's interrupted by Paul Heyman, who comes out and actually asks for Punk to take Heyman with him. He says the Bloodline are full of cold-blooded animals, and the Bloodline are not people to mess with, so he wants to get out of there, and he wants to go with CM Punk. Eventually, Solo, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, they all come out, and they threaten CM Punk, and then Cody comes in with baseball bats to help him out, and then the Bloodline back away. Which is really interesting, because if you want to build the Bloodline as these cold-blooded killers that are not scared of anything, why are they scared of two dudes with baseball bats? They shouldn't be. They should be tough enough to where they can wrestle the bats out of their hands and use it against them, but I guess not. Cody then challenges Solo Sikoa to a one-on-one match in the main event, and from there, I smelt some kind of shenanigans, because I feel like that's a title match down the road, but we'll see. First match of the night is a triple threat Money in the Bank qualifying match, as Chelsea Green picks up the shock win over Michin and Bianca Belair in a triple threat match. So Bianca goes to hit the KOD on Michin, and Chelsea tosses Bianca out of the ring and covers Michin for the win. So now Chelsea Green is going to be in Money in the Bank this year. Really cool stuff. It also helps continue this story of the fall of Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill since losing the Women's Tag Team Championship. Jade has a qualifying match like next week on SmackDown as well, so we'll see if she can pull it out, or if both of these ladies are out of the Money in the Bank match. We cut backstage to Kayla Braxton, who is interviewing DIY along with Grayson Waller, and as they're getting into a little bit of a heated exchange, we hear some rustling going on from a garage door behind where the interview is taking place. Now, they go over to open the garage door, and Drew McIntyre is there on SmackDown, who had just quit on Raw 4 days prior. He's standing over a beaten, bloodied CM Punk. Now, Drew picks up CM Punk fireman's carry style and carries him all the way through the backstage area and goes and drops him on the stage in front of the Chicago crowd to massive, massive heat. It was absolutely crazy to see this, and it was like when a cat takes out their prey and they just like bring it to their owner to present it to them, but like the reverse almost. So yeah, he drops Punk down on the ground. The crowd is absolutely just hating on it. And Nick Aldis comes out, shoves Drew McIntyre away, says, "What are you doing?" And McIntyre pushes Aldis back, which is a really good note, because Drew McIntyre quit on Raw. He's not a superstar with WWE anymore. And he's Drew McIntyre. We know he makes a lot of money on his contracts, so obviously he has the money to pay whatever fines he has to if he assaults somebody on WWE staff. One thing also to note is Drew actually bends down and takes a bracelet that CM Punk was wearing and puts it in his pocket. So now there's a question of, what did Drew take from CM Punk? What does this bracelet mean to CM Punk, and how will it factor into their eventual match at SummerSlam? So eventually CM Punk is stretchered out of the building, and that's where we ended off. So Drew is getting scolded by WWE staff and Nick Aldis, and CM Punk is bloodied and beaten and taken out on a stretcher. So I think this is a great way to write CM Punk off TV, and with Drew McIntyre quitting, this might actually be the last time we see Drew for a while. This is a great way for both of these guys to take a break on building this feud until after Money in the Bank. I think this feud could definitely cool off a little bit before it gets a little stale from being this hot for so long, and then it allows for Money in the Bank to SummerSlam to really go full throttle, pedal to the metal with this feud. I'm really much looking forward to it. Another Money in the Bank qualifying match, this time for the men, as Carmelo Hayes defeats Randy Orton and Tama Tonga in a triple threat match to qualify for the Money in the Bank. So Hayes rolls up Randy Orton after a distraction by Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. So an easy way of Carmelo Hayes getting in the match. Orton has a nice way to have an out for losing, and Tama Tonga doesn't look really weak in defeat because he wasn't the one pinned. So it works out for the best. Carmelo Hayes is in the match. It just kind of stinks that it's always like people in a feud and then some random third person, and that third person seems to get the win every time. Next, we have LA Knight calling out the United States champion Logan Paul. We've seen LA Knight trying to get Logan Paul to confront him face-to-face, to stand man-to-man and take this challenge for SummerSlam or Money in the Bank whenever they want to have this U.S. title match. LA Knight showed up at Logan Paul's house and was in Logan Paul's pool. And this week he was on SmackDown ready to call out Logan Paul, but instead Santos Escobar comes out and tries to talk some trash, step up to LA Knight, and LA Knight makes him look like a fool. So he hits the BFT on Santos Escobar. He starts talking to the camera, continuing to call out Logan Paul, and Logan Paul slides in the ring and sneak attacks LA Knight. We get the right hand punch, LA Knight's knocked out, and Logan Paul stands tall. Now next week, we get a triple threat qualifier match for Money in the Bank between LA Knight, Logan Paul, and Santos Escobar. And based on how this week's went with Hayes, Orton, and Tonga, I'm going to say that Santos Escobar probably wins that match because Knight and Logan Paul can't stay away from each other, can't stop costing each other this match. Unless they want to kind of put this feud on the back burner until SummerSlam, they could have LA Knight pin Santos, and then we have LA Knight and Money in the Bank to hold him over until the match with Logan Paul at SummerSlam. We'll see where we go. Another Money in the Bank qualifier up next as Andrade defeats Grayson Waller and Kevin Owens. It was really interesting to see Grayson Waller in this as one half of the tag champions, but after he had Austin Theory take a bullet for him last week, it makes sense that Theory's not there to wrestle in tag team action. So Andrade gets the win. Waller actually went to go hit this Rolling Thunder stunner thing. I believe it's his finisher on Andrade. And Andrade caught him into a hammerlock DDT. So it was really, really sick. Andrade wins, and a well-deserved opportunity for this guy. Hopefully Andrade does some good stuff in that match, and I think he will. Main event time on SmackDown as Cody Rhodes faces Solo Sikoa one-on-one, and Cody Rhodes actually got the win via DQ because Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa attacked Cody Rhodes. Not too far into this matchup there. I was not happy about it. And once again, the Bloodline lose. Does losing really matter in the Bloodline when all they do is lose? Doesn't make any sense. Orton and KO join the fight to make it an even 3-on-3 fight, and then eventually KO, Orton, and Cody have Solo Sikoa cornered until Solo smiles. And then you hear the crowd start to pump up a little bit and get fired up, and then you see KO, Orton, and Rhodes getting attacked from behind. Camera cuts to a better angle, and it's Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu has finally shown up on WWE television, and he came in like a fire. Like a fire. He took out 3 of the top main event guys on SmackDown like this so easily, and he looked indestructible doing it. Cody looked like he almost had him like clotheslined over the rope, but he ended up flipping and landing back on his feet and pulling Rhodes out of the ring. It was like everything that Rhodes tried to do to stop Fatu, was one step ahead. He was ready to counter it and get Cody Rhodes again. So once again, Jacob Fatu goes to the top rope. He has Cody laid out on the commentary desk, and he does a top rope splash to the outside on commentary, destroying the commentary table to close out the show, ending with Solo, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu throwing up the one to end Friday Night SmackDown this week. Now, again, I don't know what they could have done better on this week of television, and I cannot wait to see what they do next week to top it. And I'm especially excited for SmackDown because I'm going to be at the SmackDown at Madison Square Garden next week, and it looks like it's going to be a really, really great show. We're also going to get a women's triple threat between Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, and Jade Cargill, as well as the one I mentioned before with LA Knight, Santos, and Logan Paul. And that's it, y'all. That's WWE television this week. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. As always, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell. Make sure you are notified whenever we post another video. We have video podcasts going up on this channel every Monday. We have a ton of shorts going up basically every day, almost every day. We also have a bunch on TikTok. Go ahead and follow us on TikTok at Vacant Wrestling. Find us and follow us everywhere you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you can get it. We are on it every single Monday with a new podcast for you. Thank y'all so much for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.